Welcome back, Legion. Nature versus nurture. This is kind of like the ultimate discussion in sport and athletics. You know, what makes a great athlete? Is it their genetic superiority, or is it the environment that they've been brought up in? Is it even a combination of the both? So a really good book that kind of delves into this discussion like really well, and it's an excellent book to read, is The Sports Gene by David Epstein. So he kind of showcases some different scenarios, and he doesn't necessarily say that it's nature versus nurture, but kind of what you can take from it is that that's the discussion that we're kind of having. What about these athletes is different? What have they done differently? Is it because of certain traits or certain things that they've had certain successes? So when we look at nature, you're thinking more the genetic, like what has nature given this person? Different genetics, different genes can be mapped in different ways. Different genes can be activated in different ways, and that gives people different like advantages. But also, obviously, there's genetic mutations that are not good and give disadvantages. There's even those that can have advantages from an athletic standpoint, but actually come at a cost to that individual's health. So, you know, body typing is another one that we've delved into in the sports science realm. Going into different body types and how that may lead to certain propensities in certain sports. So for example, you know, you've got basketballers, so people in the NBA, they're obviously all tall, but there is a few exceptions to the rule where shorter guys can kind of come in. One thing that's actually come out of it, a different metric, is actually arm span. So as an example, Nate Robinson, who played in the NBA, was only 5'7", but he had an arm span of 6'1", and this is really common. The average arm span is, 1.063 times the height of the player. So most players in the NBA have a larger wingspan than they do actual height. So, you know, if you're a 7-footer, they actually might have a wingspan of like 7'6", which allows them to play a little bit bigger. You also see this in, say the runner. Runners generally have the longer legs and the shorter torsos, whereas a weightlifter will have the shorter limbs and the longer torsos, which allows them to move around a barbell a little bit quicker. So that's kind of your genetic component. Then you've got your nature component. So, nurture. Nurture is the environment. So the environment could be the physical environment that you're brought up in. You know, do you live at high altitude, which creates certain adaptations, especially around red blood cells, allows you to produce more red blood cells, which means you can carry more oxygen. And it also involves the environment that you're brought up in regards to, do you have access to the best facilities? Do you have access to the best coaches? And do you have a support network that kind of can harness your adventures and your athletic ability? So when we kind of break this down, you can it's a fun way to break it down, this idea of genetics versus environment. You can actually times the two. So as an example, if you've got like elite genetics, you know, say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being poor genetics, 10 being just like the best in the world. And then the same with environment, you know, 1 being poor environment, 10 being elite environment. It's fun to just kind of play around with 1, either where you're at, or 2, where some of the best athletes in the world kind of sit. You know, like ideally, you know, 10 genetics and 10 environment, that would be great, but that doesn't always come about. I think LeBron James is a really good example of this. He's probably got some of the best genetics in the world, you know, 6'8", 238 pounds or something like that. Just a freak. But he didn't actually have the best upbringing. You know, he had a single mother, he grew up in Cleveland, in a bit of a impoverished area. So, you know, maybe his genetics are 10, but his environment's like a 6. It's not the best, but through adversity, he's actually grown and become a better athlete. So that really only gives him like a score of 60 if you do 10 times 6, which doesn't really seem that high in the grand scheme of things. That's where this next this next factor comes into play, and it's probably more around effort. So when we add effort into the mix, it really changes the game a little bit. So same thing, scale of 1 to 10, 1 poor effort, 10 like elite effort. We can kind of look at this as like, if we add this to LeBron James' example, you know, he's 60, you know, arguably his effort is 10. Like, the guy knows how to hustle. He knows how to put the work in. So that gives him a score of 600, compared to, say, someone else that might have 10 genetics, 10 environment, and then maybe a 1 effort. Like, they just don't want to put the work in. That's a 100 score. So you can start to see that effort, you know, you can have all the best things going for you, but there is this kind of like mindset and effort factor that comes into play and can make a really big difference in an athlete's potential, because really that's all we're talking about here is athletic potential. These are just numbers. There's so many other factors that would go into the success of an athlete, but it's just kind of fun to have a think about it and kind of bring it up over a couple of beers. You know, it then stimulates the ultimate question of like, well, if you had 10 genetics, 10 environment, and 10 effort, like, is that, you know, the greatest player of all time or the greatest athlete of all time? We don't know. I'd love to have that discussion. So, The Sports Gene, it's a great book. Have a read. It's got plenty of very thought-stimulating stories in there. And that's what it is there's a little bit of science, but it does have a lot of storytelling in it, which makes it a lot more entertaining than just, like, say, straight up reading the articles or a textbook. So I encourage everyone to have a read of it and open up your questions. Let's have a chat about this.